Good evening. You're on Street Talk, and I'm Father Russ Carmichael. I got a great show. I got a double header tonight, huh? We were here earlier, for those of you who were at the 5 o'clock show, with Donna Williams and Prudis Crandall show. That was a great show. I got a great guest. I always have a great guest. Of course, you know that my co-host, he's across the table from me, Dominic, but back by demand. Heavy demand. Senator Cathy Osten. Well,
nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to have her back. Okay, we always got good things to talk about. I do want to say, as I said earlier, hi to Senator Maynard. God bless you. We know you're improving, and you happened to see him today too.
He came up for the session today.
Yeah, that was great. You know. So I'll be calling you up for dinner soon. So he usually gets the show, and I know he watches, and he's been very, very loyal to me over the years, and we've worked a lot of years with Andy. So we're batting 1,000. We had all good people on.
See, that's good.
You know, and you and I just talked about snow. You got snow out of the way up your way?
Oh, goodness, yeah. Well, I'm also a first selectman in Sprague, so I have that whole snow removal responsibility. And, well, thank goodness the kids went back to school on Thursday. And, they also were in there today. And we pretty much have every road pushed back, and we're working on getting the snow off those other roads.
I mean, I could have used you here in New London. I'll leave that alone.
Okay, good. Good. I have a much smaller town.
Yeah, I know.
Probably a lot less people working there too. But
yeah, I know.
But you just have a much better pre-planning of what to
we
do.
do a lot of pre-planning. We always have. But then that's my background from both being in the service and from the Department of Correction. You always plan ahead of time, plan for the worst and hope for the best. And
always ready.
Yes.
True priest.
It is
You
true.
got to be true. You got to always be ready. Always be ready for what's going to happen. Yeah, we were kind of open show tonight because we wanted to talk about different things. I didn't know what you wanted to talk about. I did want to talk about the dyslexia stuff with you. Okay, we met your friend from
Hebron, Allison Quirian. She's doing, and we're getting more and more people to sign on to the legislation. The State Department of Ed also said that they submitted some increased benefits for people with dyslexia. So that's a really good sign that they're starting to recognize that this is a real interest in this. And the Moore Commission also said that working on dyslexia was a very good thing to do. So that was really good. So
anybody who reads my Street Talk realizes how bad I am, Dominic too. But I am. Dyslexia is can be such a disability to individuals when you're trying to do stuff and everything, and has not been recognized like it should be. And we're so happy. I mean, the work you've done, and we want to get.
So now, are there going to be public hearings? Do you think this year on?
Yes. Yeah,
in front of the Education Committee, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
In front of probably both education and higher education, because one of the things that we're looking at is to have a certificate program for teachers that are interested in doing this, not mandated, but that are interested in doing this, to have them recognize the signs of dyslexia, so that we actually have teachers that are trained in recognizing the signs of dyslexia to help out children so that they don't go through 3, 4, 5 years of school and be so far behind that it makes it, an impossibility for them to get caught up. So there'll be a certificate program at a master's level, and I think that that's a great thing.
That's huge.
And again, it'll be if it passes, if the bill passes. And then we want to do evidence-based programming for children that are identified with dyslexia so that they get the appropriate interventions that teach them the methods for dealing with their disabilities so that they'll be very successful in their schooling. So, and I've met a lot of people, very successful people, who have worked around it.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
But it takes a while to get to that point.
Know, yeah. Well, number one, to realize that's what you have.
Correct.
Okay, it's not a language thing. It's not this and that. I mean, they didn't know in the old days. They had no idea what you were talking about. But at least today, there's some, people that can deal with it and know it. And there are ways around it, and of course, it used to be. I remember my teachers saying, don't worry about it, you don't need to English spelling and everything, you're going to have a secretary, they'll take care of all that stuff for you. Well, that's not necessarily the way it is today.
Correct.
And it's not, it's so challenging. I would probably have been a writer if I didn't have such a serious problem with it, and you talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, my whole school career, I mean, up until I hit college, and I had a computer with spell check, and the first spell checks, I hated school.
It makes you makes you feel worthless and worthwhile. Instead,
exactly.
And not feel that you are a worthwhile person. And when you're always struggling against something, you sometimes feel you're just stupid, and it's not necessarily the truth. So, but it's very hard to deal with dyslexia. I have another bill that you might like too.
I was just going to say, go ahead. Yeah, let's get on there.
I'm working on a piece of legislation this year that would require utilities to vet who they're giving their utilities to, because what's happening is a lot of utility bills are being put in the name of children, and the children end up with debt when they get to be 18. So yes, it's actually
how are they doing that?
Because caregivers are putting the utilities in the names of the children because they've had some problems with billing, and in order to get the electricity turned on or the cable turned on, they put it in a minor
child's name.
Name and social security number, which essentially ruins their credit when they turn 18 and they're trying to get out on their own. They realize that they have these bills in their name.
That is outrageous.
Isn't that?
That is so abusive. you decided to make me insane tonight.
I'm sorry, but I really think it's something that we have to deal with.
That is outrageous. That is, I mean, that would be like me putting my electric bill in the name of the people I care for, right?
Correct.
That are disabled.
Correct.
And they're not going to pay the bill because they can't pay it.
Right. Well, these children aren't even old enough to work.
Oh my God.
They're not even of a working age yet. And then, in 10 years, when they're 8, 9, or 10, and they have these bills put in their name, once they get to be old enough to go out and get a job, and they realize they don't have good credit, that they have bills already.
They can't shut those utilities off, can they?
The utilities won't get shut off. And there's a lot of help out there for people. So I'm not trying to say you don't help people out, because you really need to help people out. But you can't shut utilities off at this time of year.
Yeah.
We could shut cable off, but you couldn't shut.
You can't
shut off your gas
or electricity.
6 months, I think it runs from
That's right.
November
I think it's
through to
October
May.
through April or May.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Still, all in all, you can get a significantly
significant
large bill in that
yeah.
time frame. And, I think that we really don't want to have our children reach the age of working and already start out in debt.
So the bill, what is the bill going to do?
The bill would require the utilities to come up with a method that they would identify who they're putting the bills the name of the bill in, so that it...
And age.
And age.
And age, which would then be a minor, and you'd know, so that
Correct.
they shouldn't be doing.
Correct.
Okay, I like that bill. Okay,
So
yeah,
that's-
we're on with that one too.
I think that that's a really good one, and that came to me from people that work with children that are finding that their caregivers have been doing this to those children, so.
That
The
is-
Bully Busters in Norwich,
Oh, wow.
Deb Kivets.
Oh, wow.
So
That is outrageous. The other bill, of course, you know, that I'm interested in is the juvenile sentencing bill.
Yes.
Okay, which is big time. You know, we work on that big time because of background and
Yep.
associations and stuff like that. How do you see that going so far?
Well, I'm hoping that we address it this year. Quite frankly, the fact is there's been 2 Supreme Court cases that we have to come into compliance with. And, you know, in fairness, it doesn't put a juvenile out on the street. It requires a process, and that's all this would do is require that process, but give them a more mandated process so that someone of a juvenile age that is convicted of a crime that is a very significant felony like murder or significant assault would
Life.
require them to have a relook at both the sentence and the charge.
Yeah, we call it a
So-
second look. And that's what we try to tell people. We're talking about a second look because it's on the Miller
Right.
bill and Miller legislation and the Supreme Court ruling. I mean, that is obviously deep in our hearts. We thought it was going to pass 2 years in a row.
Right.
Then it wasn't brought up last year.
Well, I was going to say, I mean,
You-
obviously, you've worked in corrections. I mean, you've seen these types of people come through.
Right.
And certainly, I think when they come at such a young age, I mean, obviously, their brain's not fully developed. And it's, some days it's like magic, you know, people hit that 25,
Right.
26 years old, and all of a sudden, it's like the connections are made and the light comes on.
Correct.
And I'm sure you've probably seen that, you know, through your time spent working in corrections.
I did. You know, you saw some young people that were in situations that if you had understood the situations that they were in, probably should have been given some consideration during sentencing anyways. And some that just really made some awful decisions. And then there have been a couple of cases in Connecticut where people were young and got arrested and ultimately convicted, and then many years later found to be not guilty of their
the
particular crime.
particular crime.
Most recently, Mr. Ireland
Yeah.
just got
Yes.
a $6 million
Settlement. yeah.
settlement.
Right.
I'm not certain that the $6 million repays him for 21 and a half years of his life, but, you know,
No, not that,
but he has a great attitude. I mean, he's not angry.
No,
I mean, nothing to do with
wants to
the-
go see the world.
He does. I think that was pretty interesting. When you think about it, right?
Yeah. That's, you know, if you don't get damaged by the system and everything else like that, and there's some people that don't,
Right.
seem to get through, seem to do all right, and they don't get damaged. I mean, I have an associate that's 47 years up in Massachusetts,
Yep.
no body on the crime,
Right.
nobody dead, nobody killed, on his 47th year on a life sentence. He's not angry. He's a black guy and
Right.
stuff. I got more angry. I'm still angry about what happened to me way back when. But it's not about anger. It's about, you know, my life goes
Right.
on. I got to do stuff. He writes. He's an author and stuff like that. And hopefully, you know, we're hoping that he's going to come home soon. He did get that second look just recently, so we don't know what's happening. So, you know, there's all different circumstances, you know, and we try to tell people it's only a second look. We're not letting anybody out. Oh my goodness, we got calls already. Good evening. You're on Street Talk with Senator Osteen, Father Russ, and Dominic. Hello.
Hi. I just want to address the representative. It's hard to talk to people in office nowadays because you have to talk through their office and you never get a response. I've been trying to talk to Representative Courtney for a long time, and he hasn't even gotten back to me. He shot me some simple emails, that I don't even think it was from him, but his officers or whatever, whoever his handlers, I believe. I just want to know. I'm so lost and fed up with the country right now because we're in bad times right now, and we have only ourselves to blame. And when are we going to really crack down on white collar crime and not go after just this simple, stupid street stuff that is meaningless? Without the white collar crimes that perpetrate that overrule the street crime. If there was no white collar crime,
can I get your
rid of them? If we got
sir, can I get your question? Hello?
Participate by 75%.
Hello, sir.
You understand what I'm saying?
Okay.
Can you fathom that concept? People only do what they have to do to survive, and when white collar crime happens, and they steal and they kill and they.
I'm sorry. He's not listening to us. Caller, I'm sorry. Okay? You ask a question and we give you an answer, but you can't ramble. Please, forgive me. Okay?
So I think part of what he was asking...
We're gonna try and answer that right now.
So I think what he was asking is when are we going to concentrate on the crimes that have a greater impact on a larger group of people that have to do with banking and other things, and that would be at the federal level.
Yeah.
And the federal level does have the Dodd-Frank rule that came out, not at the federal level, so I can't answer all those questions, and they did make some improvements in what would be normally referred to as a white-collar crime sort of situation, although I do think that we have to pay attention to the street crime too. Even in the juvenile justice reform bill that is out there, it does not take away the fact that there are responsibilities for bad actions by people, and you still have to have those responsibilities, that people have consequences to their actions. So whether it's on a white-collar crime basis or some of the federal legislation that's out there, and I would say that the federal legislators have been looking at a lot of the crimes that happen on that level. I mean, even here in Connecticut, it's clear whether Democrat or Republican, they look at politicians to see if there is crime that happens that impacts
everybody.
Large numbers of people. So, I mean, I do think that they are looking at them very seriously. And one of the prisons that I worked at was up in Rhode Island, and they had a lot of white-collar crime individuals that were incarcerated there. So I think it's starting to turn around. I think that I'm hoping that that provides some relief to the caller that you just had.
Yeah, I'm hoping it too. And as far as Congressman Joe Courtney, I guess maybe you have a hard time getting him. You know, he has an office, he has local offices, and maybe you should go over there and go to his office directly instead of calling, and you might get a better response. I don't know.
He has an office right in Norwich.
Norwich, he has the office right there and stuff like that. I guess I'm fortunate. I don't have those kind of problems. I seem to be able to get to my legislators and obviously my senators right here and stuff like that. You may have to put out a greater effort. You may have to go there. They're busy people, got a lot of people. Okay, I'm gonna see who this. Good evening. You're on Street Talk with Father Russ. Hello?
Okay, I'm back. I'm going to be real calm, okay?
Okay.
Remember, okay.
Question, please. Question. What?
Question.
Yeah, what is it?
Let me speak. Remember how congressmen and senators used to go to fairs and hand out pot holders and kiss babies and stuff? How come they haven't done that in the last 10 years?
Well,
How come they haven't done that? You know
Well,
why?
wait a minute. Let's get the answer.
So I actually do that, and I actually,
Russ, put your hand down. You're not a father.
and I actually did walk around the Hebron Fair
Yeah.
with Congressman Courtney on more than one occasion, even in this last election cycle. We went to all the different fairs. Lebanon had a recognition of the farms that they had saved. We've saved in Connecticut over 300 farms, and they were recognizing that.
Right.
And there were many people there that day. I was there, and Representative Orange was there, Representative Ryan, First Selectman Okana, Congressman Courtney, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, the Attorney General, George Jepson was there, the Secretary of the State, Denise Merrill was there, the Treasurer, Denise Napier, was there. There were, the Governor came.
Governors came.
The Lieutenant Governor came. So we were at a lot of different
Functions.
functions
All over the place,
and
right.
even today, even just on a day like today, I was at an event this morning, and then went up for the Senate session,
Right.
and had some meetings with some people
Okay.
that came up to Hartford. Although I actually prefer to meet my constituents down in the district, so I do a lot of meetings in the district. And then had another event tonight at the Farm Bureau, put on a dinner in Lebanon, and I was there right before I came here. So that's a normal day for me.
That's a normal for you, right.
So many of us are there.
I know, I go, you know what, I go to a lot of different
Functions,
representatives
yeah.
and senators, because they hold coffee
They
hours.
have coffee hours.
I mean, I've met with Len Fasano, like I know exactly when his meetings are every month. You know, I just met up with Representative Claritas
Yeah.
at one of her coffee functions. I mean, you look in the newspaper, you can find out when people are doing things.
Right.
Or if you want to be involved and you're interested, go on their Facebook pages. They post up when they're doing a lot of these things on their Facebook.
All the time.
And if you want to be able to find them,
You
I
can
mean,
find 'em.
you can find them.
You can find them. You have
Yeah.
to engage, okay?
Yeah.
This caller, a caller, I'm not going to answer you. Or anything else. You're not going to be rude to me. I'm not going to put up. You can call other shows. Don't call me. You're wasting my time. You've done this before. You've been doing this for years. We know who you are. Don't call. You waste your time. Thank you very much. You're not going to be rude.
So I'm working on a whole host of
So-
different bills this year. We'll get back to that.
We'll get back to your bills.
So, I'm on different committees this year.
Oh, yeah.
So this year I was honored to be, I'm the chair of planning and development. I really love planning and development. I think it suits my temperament. I like having things planned out in a concrete fashion. I'm also the vice chair of aging, which I think is great, and I'm working on some bills that will sort of streamline the processes for help for seniors.
Thank you very much.
And I think that's something that would be really,
Right.
really good.
Father needs that.
And also the vice chair of housing, and we're looking at a lot of the different issues revolving around housing. Last night I was up at the United Services up in Dayville. They had a legislative event at night, and we're talking about some of their supportive housing environments that have worked for people with chronic mental health issues, vis-a-vis someone who might be a schizophrenic or have bipolar or be chronically depressed or have post-traumatic stress. I'm also the vice chair of labor, and I have another bill in labor again this year to work on post-traumatic stress and provide people who witness the death or maiming of an individual by another individual by a human being. So that would provide them with workers' compensation coverage. This will be my third year putting the bill out there. I think it's an extremely good bill. It has some costs associated with it, but not significant costs. There are many other states that have what is referred to as a bill that protects a mental health issue that happens without a physical injury attached to it. So and in the other states, across the United States, in states that have this sort of workers' compensation coverage, the cost is about 2% of the total workers' compensation costs, and the cases are about 0.5 or half of 1% of the cases out there. And we narrowed ours, so it would not even be that much. It would provide people with, if we're going to really recognize mental health issues, we have to really recognize mental health issues and give it the same recognition as physical injuries. So we've had several different incidents happen, whether it's the Newtown incident that happened, or the brewery incident, or the lottery incident, or the number of deaths that have happened inside a variety of private sector places, occasionally in a McDonald's or something like that. And I think those workers deserve to get treatment and get back to work very healthy. I'm not even talking about the gun issue. I'm just talking about the mental health pieces of it.
I know
traumatic.
One of my best friends is actually one of the people that has been treating the first responders over in Newtown.
In Newtown,
She's a therapist over there, and she specializes in PTSD, and she's actually been working with a lot of those first responders that had to deal with that. And unfortunately, what people don't realize is that, this is a recurring thing.
Correct.
That can be triggered off. I mean, I know when it comes around in December, I'm not going to see her because she's in there and she's dealing with these people, as they go through kind of this crisis of
It's a
of dealing
horrible-
with this.
When you're dealing with death and stuff like that, if
Yeah.
you're a first responder, people don't realize the horror that can happen to you. I mean, my brother was a livery driver. Him and his partners, they used to pick up the bodies for people and bring them to the hospital. And he used to do that, no problem. They were partners. Well, he was high school and in his college days, and he went to one accident where an infant, a child, was hurt. He has never got over that, and that ended his career in doing that because of seeing that one situation that really post-traumatic stress. To this very day, he still, he sees that all the time with children. So I mean, things like that happen. I can't imagine the people who went to Newtown when that happened, what that had to do to them.
But the real point that there should be parity between mental health care and medical. And I think that's if we're going to deal with the issues, then we have to deal with the mental health piece of it and really recognize that it's something that we should be handling. And I think that's super important for us to do. And I really think, we've recognized post-traumatic stress in our veterans, and we should recognize it in our first responders or any worker who has to deal with a situation that happens where they see the violent death or the maiming of an individual at the hands of another individual. It's very difficult to deal with, but it doesn't have to ruin your whole life. If they have the appropriate treatment, they can get beyond that and still be a very productive resident in the state of Connecticut or any place else. We really have to pay attention to this. So both to the point of your prior caller, at another event, we were talking about this supportive housing, and that's also one of the committees that I'm on. And in labor, this post-traumatic stress because it comes through workers' compensation, and that's under the cognizance of the Labor Committee. Something that I consider to be one of the most important things that we can start dealing with is giving people with mental health issues parity with medical issues on workers' compensation and in other fields and other methods of dealing with it also. So.
Do you think that's also, I know part of what came out of the Newtown and everything else was a larger discussion on mental health.
Yes.
Do you think we're going to see more legislation within that this year coming through the Senate or the House?
Well, you'll see from my perspective, you'll always see a piece of
Sure.
legislation revolving around mental health, whether it's in the workers' compensation or worker realm of things, or it's in other methods. I think that it's something that we have to deal with. And years ago, when we had the psychiatric facilities, there was at least a place to go, and I understand why we closed down the psychiatric facilities, having to do with the Supreme Court case that addressed this issue on a national basis. But what we did not do is we did not provide the supportive housing that was necessary after that happened.
The infrastructure that we should have had in the
Correct.
community, you're right.
Yeah.
And all the states did it, all of the...
Correct.
Okay, that was supposed to be part of the extended part. We're going to end these institutions, but then we're going to have...
Correct.
I mean, I have so many people, because I deal with this on a daily basis and have for years, that need managed care.
Right.
They need housing, managed care under facilities so that they could get, and they don't have it, so they're in the street. They're in the home. That's who's in the homeless shelters. That is the majority that are out there, and they can't fend for themselves. Now, some of them get money, and they may get Social Security or SD, right? However, they can't manage it.
Right.
And we don't have laws that says you have to have a managed
Right.
conservator, so you pay, so they get preyed upon daily and stuff like that. It's a horror for me. It's another one of those things that I deal with all the time, and I have some people that just can't, because the laws don't help. You
Right.
can't force them.
Correct. So almost bed for bed, the number of people that were in the institutions, in the psychiatric facilities, are now either in our prisons or in our nursing homes or homeless. The numbers from when I first started working in the Department of Correction, the numbers were about a single-digit percentage of the entire inmate population was considered chronically mentally ill. But the numbers are creeping close to 30% now,
Yeah.
and that's a large number.
That's a huge number.
It is,
Yeah,
and I think having a real conversation on mental health and recognizing it as actually either a chronic or an acute condition, and treating it, it actually provides the society with a safer society,
Much better.
and it saves money if you're only interested in saving money.
I know. And that's usually the way we are, we go at it. We go at it from the money point. You can save your money, keep them on the street, and under managed care. And people, obviously, most people don't realize the statistic at how high it is of what's incarcerated. And basically, you're having guards trying to do what should be done with social workers and stuff like that, put in a
Correct.
position where they're trying to operate two ways, one being custodians of people who can be dangerous versus people who are mentally ill, and expecting them to be trained with all this total facility person that is unrealistic in my
Correct.
mind,
So I have that bill up there again this year, and I'll work to see if we can get it passed. It's my third year putting this piece of legislation in, and I'm hoping that people recognize that we should have parity in treatment of mental health, and we'll see where it goes. So.
And I know Dominic's concerned about
Which one?
Dominic's got a bill going in, right? Notice to, isn't that, I was just going to say which one.
We put in a concept for all people who are on all federal waivers to be able to get notification when they're going to change the programs or amend them, and they're going to have to go in front of committees of
Correct. I
cognizance.
saw that, yep. It's in Human Services, yep. So, it's not one of my committees, but, so I'm hoping that at least we have a public hearing on it, and so I think it's important for people to be notified when there's changes in their program or their permitting, so that they can either be engaged in the discussion to make sure that that they're still being protected by those programs that are very necessary for them. That's pretty much what we worked on last time with the traumatic brain injury and the ABI waiver. And, it's still working on it, still problems, and still a little bit, sometimes the state agencies that have the permits are a little reticent to bring in the people that are actually impacted by the decisions that they may make. So I think that's also a piece of the discussion too.
Well, I know when we have had those opportunities to have those discussions with them prior to them presenting to the committees. The last time we had some issues, and they actually came into the public hearing, and after hearing the concerns of a lot of people, they actually pulled one of their propositions off the table to go back and discuss with people, and that's appropriate interactions.
Exactly.
And it builds a level of trust within the government too.
Correct. So we have not made the revenue that necessary right now. The governor's made some significant decisions that the ID and DD population is very concerned about. So I'm going to start looking into that to see if there are other ways. It's totally within the cognizance of the governor to make those rescissions up to 1% of the budget. It's a small number, although I never really thought that I would say that, $31 million is a small number. Because it's not to you and I. It really is not. And it impacts the population that is receiving the cuts very dramatically, because often it's those that can least afford it. And in the intellectual and developmental disability world, they have seen significant cuts over the last 20 years, and so any cut now is really a cut right into the bone of a program and not the fat of a program. And so many of the constituents that I represent are very concerned about this, and it's something that I think we have to start looking at a little bit more seriously.
It's a bigger conversation, and I'm actually very happy that there is a very large caucus of people that have joined on to the intellectually and developmentally disabled. That there's a large group of legislators. But a lot of what they deal with are, I don't know what I call the haves and the have-nots. I mean, Department of Developmentally Disabled, I think is like close to $1 billion, but a lot of that money is spent on the regional centers, and you have a lot of people. It's kind of finding a way to find the balancing act between getting more money for community-based services, which a lot more people want, versus how do you manage, what in the same way that happened with the mental health system, how do you manage those larger facilities and helping to get that to that point.
And you don't want, one of the things that many people talk about is closing down Southbury. And Southbury is under order to close anyway, so eventually there are no new residents that are going to Southbury. But I'm hesitant to close one more facility that we haven't really worked out the programming that would happen after that. So you have to make sure that people are still going to get the services, and we did not do a really good job of that in the mental health system.
No, and we have a history of doing it, and so you want to do it correctly. If you're going to do it, you want to do it correctly and
Correct.
have it transition that's good. We should have learned by the mistakes of the past. We hope. Sometimes we don't, and we do the same.
Correct, and you want to make sure that you're paying attention to those.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I want to make sure that we're paying attention to, that we're not ignoring something that we already made a mistake on. So and clearly community-based programs provide more individual treatment and get people to be engaged in the community on a usually better than the larger institutions do. But I think that there also should be some recognition that there are people that really need a lot of intensive care. And you have to make sure that you're not ignoring
And
that
you're not
piece too.
Exactly right.
And it can't all be home-based.
No, you're absolutely right.
No.
See, and that's what a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people realize that, whether you're talking in the mental field or you're talking in corrections field, yes, some things can be community-based and it realistically should be supportive and can be financially savings to the community. On the other hand, you need that restrictive environment that needs a greater control and stuff like that. And I think people don't realize there is no cookie cutter for that, and that's what we're trying to find out and solve.
Right, but a lot of the work that you do with the traumatic brain injury and those on the acquired brain injury waiver is to provide the best care for someone and keep them in the community as much as possible. And that's clearly, again, I go back to not only is it the most humane, but it's also the cheapest way. It's a much cheaper service with a better result for the individual than a nursing home care. Although there are some people that do need nursing home
That need
care.
nursing home care, yeah.
You just
I
have to make
unfortunately-
sure that you're looking at the
I had one gentleman that I worked with, and he got up to a certain point, and as many times as I could bail him out of being in an institution, because his health would fail because of his
Right.
disability, and and some of his desires not to really take care of himself as well. There does come a point in time where you have to say, okay, this person can't safely be
Correct.
here, and for his safety, he needs like
needs
this
the
level.
other- he needs the other
Otherwise,
care.
he's going to do something that's going to get him to the point where he's going to do something seriously detrimental to himself physically because of not being able to care for himself even with the supports.
Right.
Yeah. It really,
And
it's
it's
one of the
tough.
hardest areas. Well, as you know, I mean, you know from in the working areas, it's one of the most difficult areas to work and see what happens, and it's, and then legislators are trying to solve this massive problem at a
Correct.
different level, and it's difficult stuff.
And it's expensive.
I was just going to say, the bottom line is,
It requires a certain
it's-
amount of
yeah.
financial resources, and you have to make sure that you're managing those financial resources wisely and providing some results-based accountability in the money that you're spending on the services. I think that it's all, you don't want to throw money against a
Well, you
problem
want
without a
skilled people.
result.
You need skilled people. I hate to say it, you need people who know what they're doing. You need skilled people who will do that. You need to pay them. If you don't, you're going to have bad results, no matter what, because then you're going to have all kinds of difficulty with the caregivers and everything.
Right.
It is not an easy. It's not an easy fix, as you well know.
But it's something that's worth
We're
looking.
looking.
It
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that it's, so that's something that many of us are looking at.
Now, on the labor committee,
Yeah.
do you deal with the PCA union or where they're at with their current? I know that they were looking into a way to provide PCAs with workers' comp insurance, and I don't know if that had gotten any further. That was.
I'm not the chair of labor, so I'm
yeah.
only the vice chair, so I didn't see the PCA bill, but there has been some work being looked at in regards to the personal care attendants, to look at getting them some workers' comp and unemployment and some other recognition that they're actually workers. So I know that we looked at it last year, and I imagine something will come up again this year on that bill. So, home care workers.
They just got to keep ahead of like all the 50 different issues that we're always talking and dealing with.
Yeah. Busy time. So, any other ones?
I have 50 bills in there.
So, busy lady.
Well, last year I worked on a piece of legislation that was passed that provided a grant for the 4-H camp in Franklin.
Okay.
It got them $40,000, which enabled them to leverage funds to provide low-income children and children from military families to go to the 4-H camp in Franklin. And we had almost 200 kids that were able to go through the 4-H camp. It's an excellent program. They used to get a federal grant for military children to go to the 4-H camp, but the grants have gone to the larger states and not come to Connecticut recently. So it's something that I really worked hard on because I think it's good for kids to go to the 4-H camp. It's an excellent experience, and it's a really great program, and so I was really pleased to be able to get that through last year, and I put it in again this year so that we can do the same thing. And we have a lot of military families in this area, and a lot of children that really benefit from this, and the communities that I represent, we're very grateful to see this program expand to them. So that is something that I worked on quite a bit. I'm working on some infrastructure issues too, to make, I put in a piece of legislation to help make the docks down in Norwich ADA accessible. So I'm really happy about that.
I like that.
So that's
So you got me on two things right there, right? Military
I think
family.
for one
you
of
got
the
me,
colleges or
and the
something
ADA,
local, didn't you do
thing
something
was right.
with, I remember looking
We
through
got
and
the
seeing a
river
bill.
thing.
I'm sure I probably saw a number of bills with your name on them. I think it was like Thames.
Oh, yes, we're looking at some legislation for Three Rivers, too.
Yes, that's it.
And I also have another piece of legislation in to do a hydrology study and an emergency operations plan for a tiny dam in Ledyard. So it's on Long Pond, and it's something that if the dam should let go, would have a large impact on Groton and Mystic and Stonington. So try to do a whole host of different things from a variety of mechanisms. So,
You know what I can't believe? The show's almost over.
I know.
What the heck? This
Well, I don't know, you got 50
unbelievable.
bills you put in.
We have
a lot of stuff going on.
You're kidding me, right? I love having you on, and of course I want to get you back. Always, so we know what's going on in our area, and you're such a wonderful advocate for. We're on all the same issues, so that's really good, and.
And I'm just letting you know, I do have a little bit of snow if anybody wants some. We're willing to give it away.
Well, at least your kids
Free
got to
of
school.
Free of charge, we're willing to give the snow
You're
away.
giving it away, just
Yes.
go up tomorrow with your pickup truck.
Yeah.
Igloo supplies.
If people would like them, we're happy to have it. I would tell people that on that issue that to be prepared, we're supposed to get another significant storm on Monday. And
yeah.
I've heard a couple of different forecasts. Some, just a few inches and some up to a foot. I would remind people that that you should look in once you get yourself prepared with the necessary food and medicine and
so
other
you're
things.
equipped, yep.
So you have enough that you also make sure that your neighbors are equally as equipped, in particular if you have neighbors that are elderly.
Elderly neighbors or disabled
Ask you to look
neighbors,
at them.
check out your neighbors, yep.
Correct.
Very
And
good.
if you check each other out, then we're all better off for that.
Yep.
And thank goodness they've been doing all that aggressive tree trimming, because I think that helped us out immensely, and not have we really lost very little power in the state.
We were
And
fortunate,
We
yeah.
were extremely fortunate, and pay attention to whatever your local community says in regards to looking at where you're parking your vehicles, because if you park them in places that allow wherever you live the ability to clean up your roads, it makes it a lot easier and it makes it safer on the highways.
You got that?
Yep.
We're right on. We're listening to our senator.
I'm done.
Gabby, bless you, thank you.
Thank you.
And tune in next week. Who we got, Dominic?
Representative McGee.
Representative McGee's on here next week. Okay, I'll see you then. God bless you. Pray for me. I'll pray for you. We'll see you next week.